So when we last left off, I had you create the 3 floors along with the 2 variables to track the user's location. So now we're going to get into the nitty gritty. We're going to start writing the commands that'll allow our user to move through the dungeon. And if I actually go back to the lab here, you'll see that eventually we're going to have, and if I scroll up here, we are going to have left, right, up, down, grab, fight, and help. Those are going to be all of our commands. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 possible inputs. And then again, remember, if they type in a command that doesn't work, or they type in a different word, we need to let them know. So we're going to be doing both of those things. We're going to start off very simply with just starting off with the left and the right commands to make our user move left and right. And we're going to do those using some if statements. So let's see how that could work. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to create 2 more variables that are going to be used in our game. And these variables are just going to be able to track whether or not the user is still playing, meaning they're alive, they haven't gotten eaten by a monster, or it's also going to track whether or not they've won the game. And the reason why I'm going to make these 2 variables is what we're going to do is we're going to use a while loop. And as long as those 2 variables are set to a certain condition, the game is going to keep repeating over and over. So they can keep making moves until they either win or lose. So 2 variables. The first one is going to be player 1. And we're going to set that equal to false because they do not start off the game having already won it. And then the other one is going to be player alive. And we're going to set that equal to true. And then our game loop is just going to look something like this. While player alive and player 1 is equal to false. False. Perfect. And you can see that did something interesting here. I didn't write player alive equals true. And the reason why I didn't have to do that is because player alive is already set equal to true. So this while statement, remember a while statement will just keep running as long as the condition is true. And since player alive is actually the Boolean true, this evaluates to while true. So this while statement will keep running as long as the player is alive and as long as player 1 is equal to false. So those are the conditions in which our game will keep repeating. So now we have a system in which case the game will repeat over and over and over again until the player dies or the player is won. And then we can just start setting up each turn. So every turn is just going to start off with an input statement. So we'll call that, maybe we call it current move. And that is going to be equal to input from the user. So that input could be something like, what would you like to do? And then again, remember they can choose from one of those moves, left, right, up, down, grab, fight, or help. And then what we can do is we can, depending on what they type in, we're going to make certain moves. So let's just start off with the command left. That should be an easy one to write out. So right after we ask for their current move, we're going to use a bunch of if and elif statements to then make up the series of commands. So our first command is going to be if current move is equal to left. So if what they type in is the word left, we're going to do something. And then this is where it gets a little tricky because every single move that the user types in, we need to validate to make sure that it is a valid move. And so what do I mean by that? Let's think about our dungeon here, right? And let's just say, for example, my user is in this room right here, which would be floor 1, index 1, which has the staircase going down. If my user typed in left, that's a valid move. They can go left. They can go into this room right here, floor 1, index 0, which has nothing in it. They're allowed to move from here to here going left. But let's just say, for example, my user was in this room, floor 1, index 0. They can't move left because there's no room to the left to move into. So in that case, this move wouldn't work. So we want to make sure, we want to validate to make sure they can move left. And actually, I just noticed I typed in current floor here instead of current move. Current move, if current move is left. So if current move is left, move left if they're allowed to move left. So for every one of these if statements, they're actually going to be followed by another if statement that checks to see if the conditions are right for them to move. And so we can just think about this statement right here. The left move isn't too difficult to think about why they wouldn't be able to do it. If they're in this room, or this room, they can't move left. So if they're in any room that is at index 0, they can't move left. And remember, we're using this variable current room to track what room or what column they're in. So right here, they start off in a room that's at index 0, they can't move left. So the way we're going to test for that is simply this. If current room is equal to 0, that means that they're in one of these 3 rooms here. It doesn't matter what floor. They can't move left. So then we could just print, you can't move left. There is a wall there. And so that way, if they try to move left, if they're in any one of these rooms, they can't do it. And then what we can do is, well, let's say, for example, the current room is not 0, right? Then we're going to let them move left. So in that case, we can write an else statement. Just had to fix all my tabs there. I don't know what happened. We can use an else statement. So if the current room is 0, we say they can't move left. If the current room is not 0, we want them to move left. And we think about moving left, all that moving left is changing the index of the list that they're in. So say, for example, they were in this room right here, stairs down. That would be floor 1, index 1. If we want them to move left, they'd just be moving to index 0. So all we have to do is change the index of the room that they're in. So if the current room is not 0, we are just going to drop the index of the room that they're in by 1. And we could do that very simply by writing current room is now equal to current room minus 1. So we're subtracting 1 from the room that they're in and setting it back to the variable current room. So that would decrease their room number by 1. They would be moving left. And that is it for moving left. So to move right, we're basically going to write the exact same code. And so if you think about the code that we've written here, and let me just put a little space there so you can see it. We grab their current move. We check to see if they typed in the word left. And if they did, we check to see if it's a valid move. And if it is, we go ahead and do it. We're going to write the same exact code for moving right. And we're going to write it right under current move on this same indented tab. That way we check to see if their current move is left. If not, we're going to check to see if it's right. So to do that, we could just do an elif statement. And that will go, well, current move, if current move is left. Otherwise, if it is this, if it is that, we'll have a whole bunch of elif statements for all the commands they could write. So let's go ahead and write current move. If their current move is equal to right, Then, just like we went left, we want to check to see if it's a valid move. And the only difference is we said you can't move left if you're in the leftmost room. Same's true for right. You can't move right if you're in this room, or this room, which is index 4 in our list. So all we have to do is check to see if the current room is 4. So if the current room is 4, we're going to print you can't move right. There is a wall there. So same exact code. All we're doing is we're saying, hey, you can't move right if you're in the rightmost room. And then we can go out and do our else statement. And so if the room isn't the rightmost room, just like before, we're going to change their room number. This time we're not subtracting 1 if we're moving right. We are adding 1 to their index. And that will do it right there. So this is the code to move left and right in your dungeon. And we could try this out really quick. I'm just going to add a couple more things so we could see the results of this code. So the first thing is you probably want to print out what room they are in. So we could do something like this. Print. You are in a room. Inside the room is we do is a actually let me just do is, and then I will print out what's there. So current floor, current room as the index. So that way every time we loop through, we'll say you're in a room, and we'll say what's inside the room. And actually, that should be it. That should do it. I think we could try this out. So you're inside a room. Inside the room is nothing. And this makes sense because I said we're starting off in room 1, room 0. So now let's say, what would you like to do? Let's try to move left. And it says you can't move left. There's a wall there. Good. So it worked. We can't move left. And again, we get you inside a room. Inside the room is nothing. What would you like to do? Let's try to move right. And we move right. You're in a room. Inside the room is stairs down. So then our person was able to move 1 over. Now they're in stairs down. And then from there, we can move right and left accordingly in our dungeon. And it works perfectly. So there you go. That's how you're going to make your character move left and right. And what's great about this code is that we wrote it once and it works for every single room inside our dungeon. So great way to do it. Perfect.